Welcome to episode Who Knows What of the Campus Comics Cast. I am Scott Reed, and I am joined by
Mike Atchison
and Chad Schubert.
This is, of course, the Campus Comics Cast, the official podcast of Mighty Monster Comics, located at 1422 Walnut Street in Murfreesboro, Illinois. And the reason why I do not know which episode this is because I have lost an episode. Wah wah. I need a sad trombone sound there. I should have been prepared for that. Apparently we recorded an episode where we talked about Black Adam, and then we talked about Secret Invasion, and I did not get it downloaded from Skype before the 30 days expired, where they delete the recordings. So my bad. I lost that episode. Now, that being said, they're probably, if we're going to lose an episode, that maybe was the episode to lose.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of us were super excited about Black Adam or Secret Invasion. But I thought, well, we can take a couple of minutes and give some real quick thoughts and maybe go ahead and rate them for anybody who hasn't seen those or read those. So I seem to remember that Mike had the most to say about Black Adam. So, Mike, why don't you give a 30-second, spit out what you thought about Black Adam?
30 seconds.
Take what time you need,
or give or take, yeah.
We're not going to go full in.
No, I know. It's okay. So I know enough about the DC characters that I was fairly critical of the film. I think there was some quality to the filmmaking, but the characterization of Black Adam, there were lots of missteps, I think, with it. The use of Amanda Waller, I think one of my biggest issues was that even though I loved seeing the JSA, seeing Hawkman, which is always a great visual, and that was a great actor, Aldous Hodge, that played him, had the right characterization. The idea that Amanda Waller had was sort of the puppeteer of the JSA in this, to go after Black Adam was off the mark by quite a bit. It was kind of like a mindless romp through. It was like a comic book. It wasn't real deep. It was kind of fun to watch. But then again, if you look too hard, if you squint too hard, you can see the mistakes. Overall, I think in our lost episode, I gave it a 6.5 fine plus. And I think most of that's due to the movie's visual effects, not really Dwayne Johnson's, characterization of Black Adam.
So not an Oscar award-winning performance.
Oh no, how many are? But it's even under the standards that we operate under with comic book movies. If you were to say the Avengers, or let's just ask you guys, what do you consider the best comic book movie of all time?
Oh, Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Okay, Chad.
Period.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I didn't expect to be put on the spot.
I'm sorry. You're not going to be held to it. You can change your mind tomorrow.
All right. Winter Soldier is really solid. Yeah.
I would agree. Although I like the big stories sometimes. I liked Avengers Endgame. I like Superman the movie, or the motion picture. So if you put those as like 10s or as gem mint, whatever, I think that is our bar. Whereas they're not, none of them are really necessarily going to be receiving Oscar nominations. Maybe some for some part of the movie, but not
right for special effects maybe or something. Yeah.
My point is our scale is just a little bit different.
Shad, what were your quick thoughts on?
Quick thoughts. Pros. I really liked the way that we jumped into a lot of things like. We just had mentioned Nth Metal. Hawkman, Dr. Fate were just in the world. There wasn't a lot of backstory, origin stories to that. So that was definitely a pro that would feel like we're in a section in time where we can start comic book movies without giving a bunch of backstory to things. I was into the twist, where spoilers, Black Adam was not the hero; it was his son. When we find out all of that, I thought that was a cool, for me, twist to that, because I didn't see it coming, whether that was part of the original origin story or not. That was just like, oh, that I didn't see that happening. Things that I felt were a little bit weak were like I felt like the human element, the relatable characters of the mom and son were really forced upon us in this story. And just the whole third act of a big giant CG monster again was just like, okay, here we go again. It would have been good at probably an hour and 40 minutes ending where they gave Black Adam to Amanda Waller, put him in the underwater prison, and then credits, and got out of there and set up for a sequel that way. I think that the disappointment wouldn't have stung so hard if you were in there for less than 2 hours. You've been like, oh, that was okay, and then set it up for the next. But I think we might have all given a 6.5 on this one. This might have been the one that we all agreed on.
It was real close, I think. I think
yeah.
we were all in the 6 or 7 range. So,
right.
Yeah. I don't remember what my rating was.
Right. Yeah, but that was about it. Couple of pros, but mostly cons.
I think my view of this movie was a lot higher because after having sat through the disaster that was Thor: Love and Thunder, I mean, and most of the time I would complain it's just another comic book movie. No, nothing different about it. Nothing special.
I wish I would have said that was the best comic book movie.
Oh gosh, we would have never gotten to the rest of the episode. But after sitting through that and then seeing this, that made Black Adam a lot better than what I would have normally rated this movie at, because otherwise it was pretty formulaic comic book superhero movie. The scenes where it was Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam were pretty good. However, there were too many scenes of Dwayne Johnson playing himself dressed as Black Adam, which kind of brought the movie down a little bit. Dr. Fate was awesome. I would love to see a Dr. Fate film, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. And I think I was right with you guys. I'll just say 6.5 because that's as good of a rating as any other. And I was so excited about the Henry Cavill cameo at the end, but now that has, of course, been blown all to heck because we know that's not going to happen moving forward. So there you go. All right, Secret Invasion. I'll start because I think we're all pretty close to the same rating on Secret Invasion, and it was my fault that I suggested this particular story because of the upcoming series. I didn't, and the big thing was that I did not remember the storytelling by Brian Michael Bendis to be so terribly disjointed. It's just like this happens. It's almost like reading it from a Wikipedia page. So it was very, it didn't flow very well, jumped around a lot, felt very disjointed. I think I put it in the 5 or 6 range as well. I wish I could remember exactly. I was looking for my notes. I couldn't find them. So who knows what I actually graded that one at. But it was disappointing reading it the second time, especially after my memory of what happened reading it through the first time when it was coming out on the shelves. Either of you guys want to elaborate on that or add to that?
Yeah, the high points I remember, and I do have my notes, I highlighted exact words that you just used. The story jumps about. It's kind of why even though I was so excited when Bendis came over to DC, it didn't take long for me to go, well, that didn't take long for it to get old. The concept of Secret Invasion, I think, is fascinating, where you don't know who's a true superhero and who's, a shapeshifter bad guy. But the other big point is that I didn't have the benefit when I read this trade to have read all of the ancillary, spin-offs or tie-ins or whatever to give me a little bit more context. And without that, it really did seem to be just a fast and furious, just you just like jumping from one thing to the other. And I was like, I am totally lost. It didn't help that I didn't know a lot of the characters because it was a big Marvel event. But even if I did, I think I wouldn't have been too hip on it. And I even though I have my notes, I didn't write down what my grade was, but I would say I didn't probably go higher than a 5.5. Yeah.
All right, Shad.
I excuse me. In the same kind of boat, there are just a few pros. I liked experiencing it because there is a Secret Invasion show coming down the road. But that was kind of where the cool parts ended. Learning a little bit about the Skrulls. But the concept of them doing this whole invasion for a religious reason, and all of that being kind of a weird part of the he loves you thing, and it being culty, and was just kind of an odd part to it all. It didn't encourage me to, like Mike said, there are a lot of spin-off titles are outside of the main 8 issues of the series, and reading it definitely didn't make me go, ooh, I want to go read those other ones and figure out what was going on. I think the biggest pro out of everything was I really like the Embrace Change posters they had in each of the issues, with like the little like scrolls interacting with humans in everyday activities. But yeah, I think I gave it a 6.0, and it was only that high because I was like, I'm glad that I have a little bit of a source to what will be coming forward, but hopefully better.
I'll just add, because Mike, especially, you talked about some of the ancillary titles. One title that I remember that was being really, really good, and I think I talked about it when we recorded this initially, was the Secret Invasion Captain Marvel story, because Captain Marvel, of course, died from cancer in the Death of Captain Marvel graphic novel by Jim Starlin. That's a character they've kind of respected that death, so here they're bringing this character back for a 4-issue series as part of Secret Invasion. And the thing that's different about it is you have this character who the characters that have been replaced by Skrulls don't know that they've been replaced by Skrulls. So you actually have Captain Marvel battling with the fact that he doesn't know if he's a Skrull or not. Am I the real Captain Marvel? Am I a fake Captain Marvel? Doesn't make any difference. Some of the inner monologue that goes on with Captain Marvel in that series is really, really good. So it's probably I probably need to read that one again to see if it holds up. I hope that it would, because it focuses in on just one character for 4 issues, and I don't think you have to even know, if you know the basic premise of Secret Invasion, then the rest of the series would actually be pretty good. So
yeah, because didn't at one point Captain Marvel just like randomly flies away and like leaves Earth or something right in the middle of the whole invasion, doesn't he? In the 8 issues, and like maybe that explains a little bit more about what he's up to.
Don't remember. So who knows? But
yeah.
Anyway, so all right. I think the only other news that we've gotten is, of course, and I can't remember if we talked about this on the previous episode, but there's been some more information, like the Wonder Woman 3 movie's been canceled. There's some people are saying that Gal Gadot is out. Some people are saying that no, there's not going to be a Wonder Woman movie. She'll still be around for other stuff. I can't remember how much this we talked about in the last recording. Do you guys remember?
I don't recall, because I feel like right at the end of the last, we did get news of the Black Adam 2 cancel, or no future for that. I did also hear that, and this is hearsay as well in the rumor mills of it all, but that Gal Gadot's cameo in the Flash movie has been removed as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that all of the
like Snyderverse. The
Snyderverse characters, their cameos that were supposed to occur have been pulled out. The Affleck Batman and the Cavill Superman and Gal Gadot Wonder Woman.
Well, and the Keaton Batman. Is the Keaton Batman still in or not?
I heard that was pulled out at some point.
I still can't believe they're even talking about still releasing the Flash with everything else that's been going on.
Yeah.
They either need to wipe the slate clean or they need to continue with it. So
yeah.
Well, they're going to have to buy themselves some time, because they got to, if they have something in the can like the Flash, maybe they'd like to at least recoup some of that money.
Well, they didn't recoup it with Batgirl.
Yeah.
They just just ate that $90 million. So surely that movie would have made more than $90 million. So
because what all do we have on DC side left? We've got the Aquaman 2. And we've got
Shazam, the Fury of the Gods,
Shazam 2, and then Blue Beetle is still coming, and maybe maybe they are trying to figure out how to make that their kickoff. Maybe the Blue Beetle is their Iron Man of the new DCU kind of thing.
That's
Well,
optimistic.
if they keep the Jaime Reyes character, he's not the Iron Man type,
Right.
He's doesn't know why he was chosen or how he got this power.
Well, when I say, I just mean like a jump off, like
Right.
a first
Yeah,
movie
like a
in the
movie
new
that
universe.
can bridge
Yeah.
the two phases, or for lack of a better term, you've got the Snyder phase, which spans so many years, and then you've got whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see maybe having a bridge to that, and maybe that would be the easiest movie for them to use for that. They couldn't use the Flash, I don't believe. And I don't know. I mean, it's all multi-dimensional type stuff, so maybe they can spin it up to be. Who knows?
Turn into Flashpoint, and we'll have the new 52 movie verse.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need. Yeah. Quit worrying about it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. So let's talk about something that I hope you guys actually enjoyed. So if you hated this book, this is my fault. So we're gonna talk about a couple of things in this episode. First is the 23 issues, 24 if you count the 0 issue of Demon Knights. All right, and this was actually a New 52 book. Speaking of New 52, and then we're gonna follow it up. We're gonna talk a little bit about Black Panther. I keep wanting to say Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, but it's just Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, right? So correct me whenever I say that incorrectly. But we're gonna start with Demon Knights. So I thought we'd talk about the characters just a little bit before we actually get into the story, right? So basically who the Demon Knights are. I'm going to read my description here. We have this motley crew of DC characters, including Etrigan / Jason Blood, of course, created by Jack Kirby, Madame Xanadu, Vandal Savage, Yistin the Shining Knight, an Amazon named Exoristos, the Horsewoman, Al Jabbar. They are all forced by circumstance and location to team together in various situations. I kind of feel like it's kind of like the Defenders in Marvel. They're the non-team team. Like they're not really a team, but they end up being a team together. Is how they're often described. And several of the Demon Knights, specifically Etrigan, Xanadu, Yistin, and even Vandal Savage to some degree, have as part of their past is centered around Camelot at one point, or at least they're aware of Camelot. And the other thing about these characters is that most of them are immortal as well. I think we technically only have one character that is not immortal or near immortal in this cast. So to me, the big character is, of course, Etrigan / Jason Blood, aka the Demon. Etrigan is a demon that's bound to the flesh of Jason Blood by Merlin, and this, of course, occurred at Camelot. And again, Etrigan was created by Jack Kirby. Mike, you want to add anything about Etrigan? Just from a historical standpoint, or
well, I didn't do a lot of refreshing in my memory about Etrigan. It's one character I have not read maybe more than 1 or 2 issues of, even though I think I've got the entire Kirby run.
Mm-hmm.
What I do remember is that one of his traits is he's a rhyming demon, and whether it be because a rhyming demon is on a certain level of a caste system and he's graduated from it, or he's been demoted to it, or whatever, or some other reason, he doesn't always, depending on the writer, he's not always a rhyming demon. And in this particular story, he is some of the time, but not all of the time. But the basic premise has been pretty consistent, is that he's a demon that's been bonded to a human named Jason Blood, and they neither one have a whole lot of control or complete control of when they get to take over the body.
Well, I always felt like all they had to do was say the words, and that's when the change occurred. So the one that's in hell while the other one is on Earth,
right,
doesn't have any control. They're waiting for the other to actually just say the words.
But I've never understood what was the motivation. If you didn't want to go back to hell, why would you ever call back the demon and say, yeah, come on, I'm ready to go do my stint down there again, But again, that's just my lack of knowledge on it.
Well, in this, and this is fresher on my mind than the original Kirby run. I've read all the Kirby run. I just don't remember all the Kirby run. But here, Etrigan weakened the longer he was away, which is what ultimately forced him to say the words.
And that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember how.
Otherwise,
it was.
Etrigan would just stay on Earth. He'd just have a heck of a time.
There's a really good. I mean, that's one of Kirby's. Oh, that's one of his best things. If you could, what was the full statement? Gone, gone, the form of man. Something, the demon Etrigan.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that
you
was
guys
it.
go
Yeah.
ahead. I'll find it and I'll recite
all
it.
right. So next character I'll mention, unless you had something you wanted to say about Etrigan.
I always like my Etrigan rhyming, and when he's not, I just don't know. I'm like, it's just a normal demon. I don't know why he's not rhyming.
Something. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so then you have Madame Xanadu, former maiden of Avalon, who attempted to stop the Arthurian cycle by recovering Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. They kind of show the scene where she's diving into the water to try to get the sword, but she doesn't get it, and they never really come back to that. But she is now the apparent love interest for both Etrigan and Jason Blood, and it is not 100% clear which of the two she actually loves and who is the cuckold right between the two. They hint around about that off and on. Then you have, but she's also a very powerful sorceress, but her sorcery comes at a great personal price, right? Next character you have is Vandal Savage. Now, I know from when we were pre-discussing this, you had some things to say about Vandal Savage as a character, Mike. So I'm going to let you take Vandal Savage.
Okay. Well, the short version is this isn't my Vandal Savage to sound like the fanboy, but giving some latitude to creator innovation, it's okay, I guess. But as we discussed, I thought I'd give a little bit of a rundown on what the history of Vandal Savage. Not real long, but so Vandal Savage is one of the longest running DC villains out there. He came about in 1943 in Green Lantern number 10, and but his second and more memorable appearance, in fact, I thought it was his first appearance, was in All Star Comics number 37. Now, you can pull that up if you want at some point. I think I've got it on one of my tabs here, but that's the cover of All Star Comics, which of course featured the Justice Society, and you've got the Injustice Society carving up. They got like 5 or 6 members carving up a map of the United States. Now, let me tell you, I would give my pinky toe probably to have this issue, but well, maybe maybe a fingernail, something like that. But anyway, that was his second appearance. And anyway, from the beginning, though, he was kind of depicted as this Cro-Magnon man who gained immortality from a fallen meteor. And he had these pointy ears in the Golden Age, which I'm not sure what that could have been. I guess maybe an effect from the meteor. But then when he really came of age, no pun intended, he appeared in the Silver Age in 1963's Flash 137, which was the second crossover between the Flashes of Earth 1 and Earth 2. So everybody's heard of 123, 137, which I know this isn't great radio, but here's my copy, which is a pretty darn good copy of 137. And it was at that point that his whole backstory was fleshed out a little bit more, and it was determined that he was 50,000 years old, not 1 million years old, and his original name was Vander's Adage. And after this, he was, I guess that's how they, somehow he spun it around and made it Vandal Savage. But after this, became a recurring enemy to both the heroes of Earth 2 and Earth 1, making him one of those few characters that would jump across the dimensional barrier and wreak havoc. So in later appearances, his immortality power expanded to being able to heal from nearly any injury. He wasn't just immortal. And here's where you get the distinction between I'd say call the mainstay or the mainline Vandal Savage to what's shown in the New 52 Demon Knights, is that for years, for most of his history, he was depicted as like a conqueror with this genius intellect. He ruled over whole civilizations in the years that he's been alive. He was kind of a refined, it's a guy had one of those little tough collars, that, he was like a brute and a well-dressed brute. He just living up to that savage name, but he was dressed nicely. And he had all that enhanced strength and speed and stamina, but more importantly, he was like a master tactician. So he made for a good foe. Over the years, though, retroactively, we find out in Strange Adventures number 177, which I now own thanks to Scott, he gained his main foe in Immortal Man, who had received similar powers from the same meteor that fell to Earth, except when he dies, he would immediately materialize into a new body somewhere else on Earth. He would continue to have the same memories, but he'd be in an entirely new body. So he couldn't really die permanently, except he did in Crisis on Infinite Earth. So
he can't, but he did.
Yeah. Now, the Vandal Savage that we see in Demon Knights is a far departure from these previous iterations. He's got the same basic origin. You know, he's still strong, he's still tough, but in this series, he's kind of depicted as this, like, a boorish and flippant, joking, drunk warrior who just is in there for the fight. Now, maybe there's layers below, which you kind of learn that in some of the story, that he does have some motivations that he disguises pretty well. But one thing I typed here was in my notes was that he's more Lobo than a cunning conqueror. He's just more out for the blood and the fun and the just rip somebody's arm off type thing. But I need to say, though, that even though he's on a good guy, quote unquote, good guy team in this book, he's still a villain, and he really only joined the Knights out of his own boredom and wanting to, break that boredom.
Yeah, my thoughts on it was he clearly was very self-serving through the entire story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, to me, it wasn't a dramatic, change from the traditional Vandal Savage.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely see your point.
There's just a lot. I mean, it depends on how much you've read of him in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, but that's okay. I mean, the one thing great about New 52, whether you liked most of the books or not, or any of the books or not, was that
that's real much any of them.
Yeah, or any of them. The goal was to do something different without any being tethered to any continuity. And I can't blame Paul Cornell, the writer, for doing it the way he did it.
Next, we got Yistin the Shining Knight. Now, this is a gender swap version, I think, of the original Shining Knight, who also, of course, has ties back to Camelot. And along with Yistin, you have Yistin's winged horse, Vanguard. Now, Yistin is, I would say, clearly female in this iteration, but is trying to appear to be male to those around, though we'll talk about that, I'm sure, some as we proceed through the story. And Yistin is still questing for the Holy Grail, the mission that Yistin received from Merlin back in their days at Camelot. So I know, yeah. Mike, you probably know a lot more about the history of Yistin than any of us. So once again.
Yeah, I got a little bit. It's not as much, but I got a little bit written here. The Shining Knight first came about in Adventure Comics number 66 in 1941 as Sir Justin, one of the original knights at King Arthur's Round Table. And he wielded a magically invulnerable golden armor as well as a sword and a shield transformed by Merlin. His mount was called Winged Victory, not Vanguard in the original version. And this winged horse was given to him by Merlin. And he died, basically. Well, he and Victory were buried in a ice avalanche and went into suspended animation, Captain America style. But about the time Captain America went into the ice, these guys were coming out of the ice, and he became a superhero and joined other heroes in the Seven Soldiers of Victory in the 40s. And then they kind of they had their adventures in the 40s, and then they weren't seen again until the early 70s in Justice League of America in a crossover with the JLA and JSA in Justice League of America 100 through 102. And basically all of the soldiers were strewn through time, and they were all rescued by the combined efforts. So fast forward to 2005, Grant Morrison reinvented the Shining Knight as a female version named Istin. And I looked up. I know I was saying Yistin all along, but the closest approximation I could come to the original Welsh was Istin. So we'll see if that's right or not. But I'm sure one of our many people that write in will let us know. Anyway, this is when the winged horse was renamed Vanguard, and then in the New 52 version, which is in this book we're reading now, Istin is portrayed not as a female, but as either transgender or non-binary or both. It's not really made clear, except there was one of the issues. Sir Istin explains to Exaristos, who's the Amazon woman.
Mm-hmm.
She makes a pass at him, and I say him not knowing exactly what, that's how it's written here, but that he is not just a man or a woman, he is both.
Oh.
So in my understanding, it's basically non-binary, or could be transgender.
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive. Yeah.
No,
Correct,
I did. Yeah, says specifically both.
Yes,
and I think Exaristos thinks that Yistin is female. Not that it's very clear to everybody else from appearance that Yistin is female, even though Yistin is playing up as, oh, you don't know, or he's surprised. And I just said he, but Yistin is surprised every time somebody says him or he to them.
Yeah.
Or her, says her to him, because Yistin thinks he's trying to. Again, it's hard.
And this is, when you think about it, this is before the enlightenment of modern days, when there are new ways of basically pronouns and what the person prefers. So
yeah, I think that Yistin would probably identify more on the they them now.
Mm-hmm.
And is you're probably right, Mike, because falls under the category more of a non-binary.
One thing that I would point out is that clear statement from Yistin occurs in the Vendetti portion of this book, not in the Cornell portion of the story.
Okay.
So it's also possible that it could be Cornell was wanting to do something different with the character, and Vendetti, when he took over, decided to go a different route with the character. So who knows? So,
and I find the Shining Knight to be one of the most interesting characters on this team.
Oh, absolutely.
This is even, going back, I remember reading Morrison's version in 2005, which I can't believe it's been going on 20 years now that came out. But I remember that being some just groundbreaking, comic writing. So, yeah. But anyway, that's the only really two characters that diverge drastically from what we might be familiar with.
Now, those are the four, what we call established characters that existed prior to this. Then we have three new characters. The Horsewoman, she's a paralyzed woman who has a magic saddle that allows her to ride. She's also able to communicate with horses, and is, of course, an excellent archer. We have Al-Jabbar, who is a Middle Eastern alchemist / scientist who specifically does not believe in magic. And his name is a pseudonym, because his name apparently means the numbers if it's translated over. And then Exaristos, who is an exiled Amazon, and I think everybody understands what an Amazon is. So I think I don't have a whole lot else to say about the character. So I don't know, just something from the standpoint of the characters themselves. Anything that you guys want to add that maybe you feel like is important to the characters that I've omitted?
Chad, why don't you go ahead?
No, I don't think there's anything. They weren't. Not all of them had really shaped personality, I don't think, too much towards the beginning, but as the story went on, and maybe it's as Vendetti took over, maybe they started to shape a little bit more of who they were as far as personalities in this team and how they all fit together. But that was when I think we had talked about this a little bit prior to recording, was I kind of got confused as who was who, and it wasn't really like visually who was who, but like they didn't really early on before I'd finished reading it was just like, oh, they're kind of just a crew, and maybe some of them there's a bunch of people doing magic, but then they kind of shaped that up a little bit more as it went on. But I think we hit all the beats.
Okay. Mike, anything else about the characters?
Well, okay, so I read the first arc all at one time. I was on a plane and I took notes, and I'm like, man, this is not really historically accurate. And I've read my share of Arthurian fiction, And I'm only going to point these little nitpicky things out now so I can go on and show my transition from not being impressed to being much more impressed. So we already talked about the difference in some of the characters and how they weren't what I was familiar with. But some of the things like the historical aspect, like I said, Cornell, the author, the writer, says that the last day of Camelot was 400 years ago. And
okay, that was 400 years before the current time, which
their
would have been the
present
Dark
time.
Ages
Okay.
in the book. So that would have been, if you say the Dark Ages are the 1500s, then the last day of
Yes.
Camelot would have been in like the 1100s.
Okay.
That's how I.
And that makes sense. That makes more sense, because whoever author was based on he was a warlord or maybe a series of them. He lived around the 4th century AD, right at the end of the Roman Empire, and so it just kind of threw me off. Maybe it was just me not understanding, and maybe it was just didn't read it closely enough or didn't reread it, but it felt like the timeline wasn't matching up very good. And I think that first arc was just like everything was thrown in and you had to figure out things really quick. It was just a lot happening. And my gut reaction was I wasn't impressed. And then I got to the second arc and I liked it a lot better. This is whenever they were headed to Camelot, and they seemed to gel more as a team. They seemed to have better interactions. Maybe there were fewer characters you had to deal with, but I've totally changed my opinion based on that. Well, in between the two arcs, you had that issue where it was just the history of Madame Xanadu right. So,
which was the issue 0, if I remember.
That was actually issue 8.
Oh, that was 8.
Issue 8, yeah.
Wasn't 0 also a history of Etrigan and blood?
It's just so 8 is the story of Blood Etrigan, the love triangle issue.
Okay.
Yeah. And then issue 0, which was like issue 12.5, it was between 12 and 13. That's just kind of the origin of Jason Blood and Etrigan.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Which I haven't read yet, so I've read the first 12. So, but anyway, I've come around. No, I know I can't. Man, dude, I'm trying to keep up. I am trying so bad. But
just gonna tell you now, we're gonna have spoilers. So
that's fine. That's fine. It's not. This is a 10, 11-year-old comic. I have only myself to blame.
Okay, so the story, I think this is right. The first issues 1 through 15 are written by Paul Cornell. Issues 16 through 23 are 24. 20. I can't remember what the
23 plus 0.
Okay, yeah. So 23. Written by Robert Venditti. We have various pencilers. I think I have the whole list. We have Robson Roca, Dionys Neves, Mike Choi, Bernard Chang, Chad Harden, and Phil Winslade. I'm not sure I missed any of the artists.
I don't think so. No.
But that's the bulk of them. I think that's so the art style does change up a little bit. I didn't list the inkers or the letters or anything like that. So all right. So I'm just going to real quick, issues 1 to 7, right? Basic synopsis of those issues. The Demonites come together at a tavern in a small village named Little Spring, which happens to be in the way of an enemy horde led by the questing queen and Mordru. And they're marching towards the city of Alba Sarum. The group, either with the devious help of Vandal Savage or perhaps in spite of Vandal Savage, is actually able to repel the horde. So there's your synopsis for 7 issues. I think that's pretty succinct, right?
Yes.
So Mordru, I take as also another character from Arthurian. I don't know if that's supposed to be directly related to Mordred or not. Of course, Mordred wasn't so much a sorcerer as a warrior, so I don't know if this is a pre-existing character.
Mordred was Arthur's son, who he inadvertently spawned with his own half-sister, Morgane.
But this is Mordru.
Mordru, right. Mordru is not, as far as I know, I've never seen that variation or that name in any of the Arthurian books, but Mardru in DC is a magician, and that's in the 30th or 31st century, that's been a foe of the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember the Mardru globes we talked about in the Supergirl book? And chased her through. It was super fast, and it chased her all the way to the edge of the universe.
That's Mardru.
That's the same Mardru. So he's a DC villain. Mostly, he's been around a while, but he mostly fought the Legion.
Do you think this is the same Mordru as
I think it has
Legion?
to be.
Okay.
I think it has to be, yeah.
And what about the Questing Queen? Do you think she's new for this series, or do you think she pre-existed? Or are you not sure?
I mean, there's no name relation to anything I know.
Okay.
But she could.
There's no link to the Questing Queen on. She doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
I'm just. Well, that's all we need to know right there. She doesn't exist. She doesn't exist.
But she makes a good, like the evil queen archetype,
So, well, okay. So on these issues, I guess different for me than for you is that I was immediately pulled in by these first few issues. It 100% feels like Paul Cornell, at some point in his life, was a D&D player, wrote a D&D campaign or played in a D&D campaign, and then liked it so much, he says, I'm going to turn this into a comic book. Oh, DC, you're going to let me write a book? Oh, it's going to be in old times? Oh, okay. What characters can I use? All right. And just filled in the blanks, it feels like something that anybody could have had as a campaign and, set in D&D. So I just was immediately pulled into it, meet at the tavern, have a fight.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, oh my gosh, I just totally went on a tangent thinking about the last, well, not the last, but one of the episodes of the Sandman TV show where the guy that wanted to live forever and
Hobgoblin, not Hobgoblin, Gadling.
Yeah, right. But it made me think of that whole scenario you're talking about, Scott, with being in a tavern and in just medieval times. I like that. I like that scene too. Anywhere you go, I just felt like so much was jammed in that first 6 or so issues. I was like, oh my gosh, But again, I think knowing now that they're established, and I could go back and read the first 6 issues and be fine with it.
Well, I think that's how we got to know. They used that fight as to introduce the characters.
Yeah.
So, like, here's the characters, and now you're going to get to know them over these 7 issues, as opposed to let's introduce all the characters and then have them do something.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was a good mechanic to tell a story and to kind of get us into the action without having to waste a lot of time going through origins and how they all got together.
That's true. Did either of you read any of the Authority or the Stormwatch stuff from Wildstorm?
No.
I started to read the Authority, but I didn't get very far.
So there's a character that's been on both teams called the Engineer. And I remembered a couple times in this story, in these 12 or so issues I've read, that Al-Jabbar was referred to as the Engineer, lowercase e, but as the Engineer. And I thought, well, since this team is supposed to be the predecessor of Stormwatch, I wonder if this is like the spiritual predecessor of the Engineer that came around, in modern times. But I didn't know if you guys had seen that or read that.
No, I have not. I'm looking up on the DC fandom Al-Jabbar right now and of course its first appearance is Demon Knights #1. So it doesn't mention anything, but that doesn't mean anything. So
I just don't think it's going to be over the head that we're going to see that. But I think that it makes you wonder if Cornell was planting little clues somewhere.
Right. Well, yeah, because there's definitely a tie from this book and Stormwatch. So that would make sense.
Yeah. Now it makes me want to go back and read a lot of that stuff. In fact, I've only read a little bit of it, but I'd love to read the whole thing just from start to finish. In all my spare time.
In all your spare time, yeah. All right, so then we have after issue 7, we have a kind of a standalone issue 8. And this issue, I think we already mentioned this, explains the origin of the Jason Blood, Etrigan, and Madame Xanadu love triangle.
Love is a trial.
There you go. So
Love is a battlefield. It's a song, Shad. It's a song waiting to be sang.
So at the and I guess really to me the bigger thing is at the end of this issue, we actually see the murder of Merlin, which kind of sets up our next story arc in this. So it's kind of a standalone issue, but at the very end they kind of set us up for the next story arc. So I mean I don't have anything to say about issue 8. You guys want to add anything about issue 8?
I didn't keep notes. I just know I enjoyed issue 8 quite a bit. It was like a good palate cleanser type book.
Yeah. Okay. So Brady. Okay. So 9 to 15. We learned that Merlin actually lived through the attack, wasn't actually killed, and the Demon Knights are tasked with a way to revive him. Now it is Etrigan who is working against the team instead of Vandal Savage in an attempt to get Hell into Avalon. Of course, I guess Hell is wanting to expand, so Avalon would be a perfect place for them to do so. So on their way, there's this blight that has caused a lot of monstrosities that occur, and the Demon Knights are battling through those monstrosities, which includes a zombie King Arthur. The team is able to restore King Arthur, and they attack Camelot to find that Morgan Le Fay is sitting on the throne. The team defeats Morgan Le Fay, but in doing so, destroys the path to Avalon, which enrages Etrigan. Etrigan then entraps the Demon Knights in Hell, but in doing so, he basically breaks the curse that binds him to Jason Blood. So Jason Blood is now free to roam about the country, if I want to quote a commercial. But in actuality, all he wants to do is get back to Madame Xanadu. However, Jason Blood comes across the questing queen and Mordru again, and they basically are able to force the swapping of places between Etrigan and Jason Blood. So now it's Etrigan that is being held by the questing queen instead of Jason Blood. So the Demon Knights are able to escape Hell through Avalon. So even though they destroyed the initial portal to Avalon, there was a separate way for them to get there through in Hell. But in doing so, the door to Avalon remained open, which allowed both the armies of Hell and the armies of the questing queen to come through. And then, of course, Avalon has its own army, the Silent Army, and they battle, and ultimately good prevails. And one important piece that happens in one of these issues, I don't remember exactly the issue, is that Exoristus is given a black diamond and is tasked with guarding and protecting that black diamond moving forward. So thoughts on 9 to 15?
This was where the story got interesting. There were cool parts, and I really liked when they all got tortured in Hell. That was like one of my favorite parts of the whole story. But no, I did like that kind of turning point where they were trapped. That kind of sticks in my head about this series is them all kind of going through their own torture while Jason's trying to figure out how to save everyone, and so that was cool. I don't remember, we didn't talk about it, but in the first run, but the questing queen, even in the first run, had dinosaurs, right? Like, is that yes. Part of, so like this whole book's filled with dinosaurs in medieval times. So, but this was like demons, dinosaurs, and I don't know, another D word, damsels in distress.
Dragons. There was dragons. There was dragons too. So there you
go. But no, that's kind of all I've got to say about this one. I felt like I started to understand the characters a little bit more. They were definitely getting a chance to develop a little bit more and build their relationships with one another.
Yeah, I definitely think by issue 7, you should have had a general idea about the characters, and then now actually put a little depth to those characters. So establish the foundation and then build upon that foundation.
Yes, absolutely.
Mike, you want to add anything about 9 to 15?
No, remember I only read to
12. That's right. You only got to 12. So what, you want anything for 9 to 12?
I like that story arc was a lot of fun. Yeah, it reminded me more of all of the King Arthur, I like that King Arthur wasn't just a zombie. He actually, was
Arthur just
was Arthur for a time. Yeah. It wasn't just like Once and Future, the book we read not too long ago. And yeah, no, I liked it very much. So I just know that there's a lot more that I don't know about, so I can't speak to.
Okay,
we got a lot of Lucifer in this story arc, if I remember right. Which
yes.
I'm always a fan of the Lucifer character, and just his conversations with Etrigan about Etrigan being kind of a slave to him as well, and what it would mean for him to break the rules and all of that.
And a little different, and not the same Lucifer as what we got in Sandman.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit different there. So
yeah, it's a public domain character. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Even within its own publisher.
Right.
Yeah, I don't like this Lucifer as much as I like the kind of Sandman Neil Gaiman version of Lucifer, but it's nice to have a good bad guy like Lucifer.
All right, so the next block is issues 16 to 19, and this is actually 30 years later, right? So we have a time jump here. So 30 years later, the Demon Knights are brought back together to battle a vampiric army, making its way to Themyscira. So we're getting some more tie-ins with the proper DC universe. Exorestus, Yistin, and the Horsewoman are brought back together by a now aged Al-Jabbar in Al-Wadi to stop this force. Meanwhile, Vandal Savage has been holding Jason Blood captive for the last decade. So Jason Blood got to spend a third of this 30 years just being tortured by Vandal Savage.
And starved. He has his mouth is sealed over, right?
Yeah, so it's like that Matrix,
yes.
scene. Yeah, so Jason is rescued by our trio, who then find Madame Xanadu. They make their way to Themyscira and prepare to travel there when Vandal Savage returns with an army in an attempt to retake Jason Blood / Etrigan. The reunited Demon Knights, alongside the Amazons, battle and defeat Cain, who is the leader of the vampiric army. But during the battle, Yistin is bitten, which leads to Hippolyta revealing that she has seen and potentially knows the location of the Grail. So anything you guys want to add in? Of course, I know, Mike, you won't be able to add very much, but maybe it'll interest you to see that there's a little bit more tie-in to the DC proper with the Themyscira and coming up. So
yeah,
this whole storyline I was very conflicted about it, because I felt like the vampires was like, oh, we're really throwing in like a whole nother like element that I kind of didn't expect in this story. But I guess we were already dealing with fighting dinosaurs, so it was already a little weird. But it was also a lot. It felt like a very linear, well put together story that was easy to follow and easy to kind of go through, with them following, knowing where the Cain's horde was going and trying to cut them off and it felt like a very flushed out story that I enjoyed a little bit more than the first half of this run. They could have been anything, but they ended up they were vampires. But you could have had this horde of Cain's army being anything, and it still would have worked pretty well, no matter what. But I did enjoy kind of getting the band back together, and Al-Jabbar kind of being the Charlie of the Angels.
Yeah. One of the things is, in the New 52, of course, there was a greater emphasis on vampires. In fact, it wasn't one of one of the first New 52 books was I, Vampire, and it probably had been canceled by the time Demon Knights made it to issue 16. So maybe they were trying to want to keep that idea someplace in the forefront of DC, because they had bigger plans at the time. But
and they still like vampires. I mean, even now they've got DC versus vampires.
Yeah, it's interesting that they have the antagonist in this arc is Cain.
I was getting ready to comment on that.
and you were going to talk about the Vandal Savage?
No, I was going to talk about Cain as in House of Secrets or Mystery Cain.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I think mine's less impressive or whatever. It's just, I know that in one of the one of the storylines with Vandal Savage in probably the 2000s. It was indicated, or maybe it was in DC Rebirth, so like even only a few years ago, he was the inspiration for the actual mythical character of Kane. So so I wondered when I seen or heard you guys talk about Kane, I wondered if there was something in the story that connected those two characters.
Not that I remember.
According to Wikipedia, vampires trace their lineage to the biblical Cain. After being exiled from paradise and cursed with the mark of Cain for killing his brother Abel, Cain wandered the vast desert until he came across the first woman, Lilith. Consumed with bloodlust, he turned her out of sheer instinct. I don't know. Evidently, there's some weird offshoot of the Bible that has to do with vampires and Cain.
A lot of Cain going.
There's a lot of Gnostic texts that are related to and pseudepigraphal.
Those are big words.
Sorry. Gnostic just means hidden knowledge.
Yeah.
And pseudepigraphal just means it's like if I were to, like, somebody has written a quote unquote biography of, oh gosh, and now I just forgot the guy's name. If you write a biography and say it's by somebody, but it wasn't actually the somebody who wrote it, it's pseudepigraphal. So if I were to write a biography of Joe Biden, and produce that, and people suddenly thought this was Joe Biden, it would be pseudepigraphal. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Okay.
We're an educational show, also.
That's right. We got those 5-cent words. No, I was just going to mention, I thought it was odd that they chose to use the name Kane because Kane is so tied to House of Mystery, House of Secrets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not that you can't have two characters named Kane, but I guess they wanted to tie back, in a different way. So I just wonder if there are some of their original intentions, because I don't know if they were doing anything with Kane or Abel during the New 52.
I think that they were not touching the Sandman universe at all at that point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that that's a point where Vertigo would have been still around but separate. Mm-hmm. So
right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Shad, you want to add about 16 and 19?
Nope.
Okay. Did I mention the Zero issue? Whatever we talked about the previous set.
I don't know.
Okay. Issue 0 was actually printed between issues 12 and 13. All right. And it just gives us an origin of Jason Blood and Etrigan. So just a little fill in the blanks. DC did a 0 issue month, I think.
Yeah.
And that happened for all the titles. So all of them would have at their 13 issue got a 0 issue instead. So, all right. And then the wrap up to the series, which was issues 20 to 23. All right. In the final adventure for the Demon Knights, they travel, battle monsters, fight amongst themselves, and search for the Holy Grail to restore Yistin. The Knights recover the Grail and return to Al Wadi. The Grail is able to heal Yistin along with the Horsewoman. However, the healing effects of the Grail are much too powerful, and the Grail's power is actually offset by that black diamond that Exoristas had been carrying and protecting for the prior 30 years. During their escape from their adventure, Vandal Savage was actually captured by a group of giants. So now we see that this captured Vandal Savage has basically revealed the location of the Grail to the giants. So there's this band of giants that's attacking Al Wadi. The attack is ultimately repelled. The Grail and the Black Diamond are left with Al-Jabbar. And the Demon Knights ride off for more adventures that unfortunately never happened.
I know, because this felt like my favorite kind of arc. Like, I felt like it's the most has a lot of adventure. It has some historical stuff in it. It has the betrayal of Vandal Savage is just not a good dude, and it has giants, and it has our return to Al-Jabbar, and it just it has all of these really cool elements in trying to save the Yistin, and I was just this feels like the I didn't really care for the first story arc. The second story arc was okay, we're getting our footing. The third story arc was about vampires, which was kind of weird, and then this one was just oh, this is flushed out and it feels really good, and then it's over. And there's no.
Yeah, it was. I did think I didn't put it in there, but one of the scenes that was kind of funny was um, uh, Vandal Savage and Etrigan are left to fight these giants, and Vandal Savage he says something to Etrigan, who's going to change forms and bring Jason Blood back in place of Etrigan, and when he does, Jason Blood doesn't show up. He's just like
Yes,
he just
yeah.
vanished, and Vandal Savage is like, I need to find more reliable traveling companions before he gets stepped on by a giant. So
Yes.
I don't have anything else to add about that particular thing, other than I did like the fact that not every single story was 6 issues.
Yeah.
You know, so that they could do 6 issues in a trade. If the writers wanted 7 issues to tell the story, they took 7 issues. If they finished it in 4 issues, like the last story arc, they used 4 issues. You know,
Right.
So it was good not to have that cookie cutter. We gotta stretch it or shrink it, condense it to make it fit into 6 issues. So that was a nice change. I feel like you got a more complete story that way.
I'm sure that when they're packaging volume 3 is like 11 issues when it's chalked up to volume 1, 2, and 3. It's like that's a hefty volume 3 out of it all. But I'm sure if it wasn't canceled, they would have chopped that up a little differently, maybe.
Yeah, I would say so, because I kind of felt like there was a break. 16 to 19 was kind of its own story.
Yeah.
And 20 to 24 was its own story. So
exactly. Yeah.
But all right, well, I don't know. Mike, you got any final thoughts on what you've read of this?
Yes, and it is change the form of man, free the prince forever damned, free the might from fleshy mire, boil the blood in heart of fire, gone the form of man, rise the demon Etrigan.
They shortened that because I know that they went ahead to put that every single time and every single issue.
I think it's mostly the important part is gone the form of man, rise. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes.
He probably got tired of saying it. He's like, man, this is taking me forever. Or it's like Green Lantern trying to charge his ring. I'm like,
yes.
Okay, let me do this shortened, abridged version.
No, it's probably the letterer going, okay, enough is enough. Dot.
We get it.
Yeah. Dot. A better somebody who can actually read poetry could make it sound pretty cool, I think.
All right, well, Chad, any last thoughts on Demon Knights?
I think I gave them all. Yep.
All right, Mike, do you plan to finish the story?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. I've got. It's on my iPad right now, and I get through 2 or 3 issues at a time, and I think I'll be done with it within a week.
Okay. All right, so I guess grades then. You wanna grade it, Chad? Go right ahead.
Yeah. I'd give it a 7.5, a very fine minus. There were parts I really liked and I would have gave a much higher score, and there are parts I didn't like and I would have gave a lower score. So that was kind of my balanced out average score for the story.
I'm a little different than you guys on this, I guess, because I'm overall I'm at this story as the whole series is a very fine plus. I actually kind of like the first 15 issues a little bit more than the last set of issues, so I kind of think the first 15 are more like a 9, very fine / near mint 9.0. The last few are closer to like a sort of very fine, like an 8, maybe even a very fine minus 7.5. I still enjoyed them.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I still like this series. I wish it would have continued, or I wish DC would, they're throwing everything else at the wall. Why not bring this back?
Right, exactly. I don't think any of these characters are doing anything currently.
No, I don't think so either. So
yeah, there's so many characters out there that aren't being used. It's a shame. I can't really give a good. My grade
the first 12.
Yeah, my grade will be based on the first 12, and I'll give it it's going to be the average between. Well, it'll be more on the high side of the average. If you asked me the first story arc, I'd probably say a 6, maybe a 5.5, but then it got up around the 8-ish area, so I'm going to give it a 7.5 as well, for the first 12 issues, and I don't really see it roller coastering. I think it's going to keep going up for me.
All right. So how about Black Panther?
How about it?
Wakanda Forever. All right, so let's just real quick. Of course, spoilers, right? And as always is the case, I'm just going to go through the plot here from Wikipedia, the
Their
word of the
sponsor.
day, the word of the day. So maybe one of us does need to send those $2 to
Go
Wikipedia.
donate to Wikipedia.
Yeah, they keep asking for. So T'Challa, King of Wakanda, is dying from an illness which his sister Shuri believes can be cured by the heart-shaped herb. Shuri attempts to synthetically recreate the herb after it was destroyed by Eric Killmonger, but fails to do so before T'Challa succumbs. 1 year later, Wakanda is under pressure from other nations to share their vibranium, with some parties attempting to steal it by force. Queen Ramonda implores Shuri to continue her research on the heart-shaped herb, hoping to create a new Black Panther that will defend Wakanda, but she refuses due to her belief that the Black Panther is a figure of the past. In the Atlantic Ocean, the CIA and U.S. Navy SEALs utilize a vibranium detecting machine to locate a potential vibranium deposit underwater. The expedition is attacked and killed by a group of blue-skinned, water-breathing superhumans led by Namor, with the CIA believing Wakanda to be responsible. Namor confronts Ramonda and Shuri, easily bypassing Wakanda's advanced security. Blaming Wakanda for the vibranium race, he gives them an ultimatum: deliver him the scientist responsible for the vibranium detecting machine, or he will attack Wakanda. Shuri and Okoye learn from CIA agent Everett K. Ross that the scientist in question is MIT student Riri Williams, and arrive at the university to confront her. The group is pursued by the FBI and then by Namor's warriors, who defeat Okoye before taking Shuri and Williams underwater to meet Namor. Angered by Okoye's failure to protect Shuri, Ramonda strips her of her title as General of the Dora Milaje and seeks out Nakia, who has been living in Haiti since the blip. Namor shows Shuri his vibranium-rich underwater kingdom of Talokan, which he has protected for centuries from discovery by the world. Bitter at the surface world for enslaving the Maya, Namor proposes an alliance with Wakanda against the rest of the world, but threatens to destroy Wakanda if they refuse. Nakia helps Shuri and Williams escape, and Namor retaliates with an attack against Wakanda, during which Ramonda drowns, saving Williams. Namor vows to return with his full army, and the citizens of Wakanda relocate to the Jabari Mountains for their safety. Meanwhile, Ross is arrested by his ex-wife, CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, for secretly exchanging classified intelligence with the Wakandas. Let's take a break there and talk about the first roughly half of the movie. So, I don't know. Initial thoughts, what I've mentioned here in the plot synopsis so far.
I didn't realize that that Valentina was Ross's ex-wife. Was that like in the story?
Yes. That was in the movie.
Is that in canon also, or like for the comics?
For the comics, no.
Okay.
For the movie, obviously, it's for the MCU. Yeah. To my knowledge, no. There's no relationship between Ross and De Fontaine. De Fontaine is usually a significant other for Nick Fury, the original Nick Fury.
Gotcha. And is Everett Ross related to Thunderbolt Ross?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't think there's any relation there. Yeah, because Everett Ross was created, I think, by Christopher Priest, actually in an issue of Kazar.
Oh, okay.
And then becomes the viewpoint for the reader in the Christopher Priest run of Black Panther.
Okay, and he was named after Will Everett, wasn't he? Not Will Everett. Oh my gosh, Will Everett. Oh my gosh, I'm totally mixing. Who's the co-creator of
Bill Everett?
Bill Everett.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think he's named after Bill. Will Everett is a character. He's called Amazing Man in DC, who was created. Roy Thomas named him as an homage to Bill Everett. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That I don't know. So I know that there was a lot of negativity about Namor not being from Atlantis, right? And I still say that is because the general movie-going audience does not know comic history, and they don't understand that Namor pre-existed Aquaman,
right?
And that Namor was from Atlantis before Aquaman was from Atlantis. And because more people have seen the Aquaman movie than have ever read a Namor comic book, they probably felt obligated to make some changes to the character. So, of course, the more Aztec origin and appearance, and then the changing of the name from Atlantis to Talakon, I think was necessary, and I didn't bother me because I felt like we got a relatively true to the idea of the comic Namor, so I was okay with that.
And is Talakon created specifically for the MCU, the movie universe, or did Talakon exist prior to this?
I think it's just created. It's based off of Aztec mythology.
Okay.
So I beyond that I don't know anything about it.
Gotcha.
And I'm making an assumption that it's based off of Aztec mythology.
Or Mayan.
Mythology.
I would
or
say.
Mayan? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got Olmec, you got Mayan. The cultures are, I mean, they're just in different eras in the same location, in the Mesoamerica.
And then I just have a bunch of questions about the history of Namor because I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Were the people blue always? Like, were Namor's people the Atlanteans blue in the comics?
As long as every single appearance of anybody besides Namor or Namorita who was Atlantean is blue skinned. So you have like Atuma and Lita and just your typical warriors. They're all generally blue skinned.
Okay.
So so that is normal because Namor was a half breed, half human, half Atlantean. That's why he has the white
tan
peach
skin.
Peach skin.
Okay.
And then of
I
course
just thought if it wasn't, it was a weird choice for coming out so closely to Avatar. But if it was
No.
meant to be blue, then it's good that it's blue.
No, yeah, it is that is pulled directly from the comics. So anything else specifically to the first half of the movie you guys want to talk about?
I have more general thoughts than just breaking up the movie in pieces, but I did enjoy the first half. It seemed to do what it set out to do.
Well, then let's just finish. There's only like 3 little paragraphs here left for the rest of the film, and then we can just talk about whatever we want to talk about. So, after Ramonda's funeral, Shuri uses a remnant of the herb that gave Namor's people their superhuman abilities to reconstruct the heart-shaped herb. She ingests it, gaining superhuman abilities, and meeting Killmonger in the ancestral plane, who urges her to seek revenge. Shuri dons a new Black Panther suit and is accepted by the other Wakandan tribes as the Black Panther. Despite M'Baku's urges for peace, Shuri is determined to exact vengeance on Namor for Ramonda's death and orders an immediate counterattack on Talakon. Preparing for battle, with Ayo assuming the position of general of the Dora Milaje, Shuri bestows the Midnight Angel armor upon Okoye, who in turn recruits Dora Milaje member Anika to join her. Williams creates an Iron Man-esque powered exoskeleton to aid the Wakandans. Using a seafaring vessel, the Wakandans lure Namor and his warriors to the surface as a battle ensues. Shuri traps Namor in a fighter aircraft, intending to dry him out and weaken him. The pair crashes on a beach and fight. Shuri gains the upper hand, but realizes the similarities between their paths and implores Namor to yield, offering him a peaceful alliance. Namor accepts and the battle ends. Namor's cousin Namora is upset at Namor's surrender, but he assures her that the new alliance will allow them to conquer the surface world one day. Williams returns to MIT, leaving her suit behind, while Okoye rescues Ross from captivity. Shuri plants more heart-shaped herbs to ensure the future of the Black Panther mantle. In Shuri's absence, M'Baku steps forward to challenge for the throne. Shuri visits Nakia in Haiti, where she burns her funeral ceremonial robe in accordance with Ramonda's wishes, allowing herself to finally grieve T'Challa. In a mid-credit scene, Shuri learns that Nakia and T'Challa had a son named Toussaint, whom Nakia has been raising in secret. Toussaint reveals his Wakandan name is T'Challa, son of Prince T'Challa, etc., etc. Okay, of course, the big thing that we haven't even mentioned is Chadwick Boseman's presence was sorely missed in this movie. And they do take, they change the opening credits. They have a very elaborate, burial sequence for T'Challa at the beginning, and that's of course there was a mention of the robes. there, so those being burned as well. So that's all kind of part of the mourning process for Wakandans. But yeah, Chadwick Boseman seriously missed, which also led to, if I got a big negative about this movie, is that they had to take a step backwards to undo some of the stuff they did in the first movie so that they could take 2 steps forward to move forward with the story. Okay, we had to spend time, covering what happened to T'Challa. We had to spend time recreating the heart-shaped herb. We had to, do all this stuff so that we could then move forward with the story, which, one, it made the movie longer than it maybe needed to be. It also, again, just didn't, it wasn't moving things forward, just trying to get to where we could, tell the story that we needed to tell at this time. So,
yeah. I mean, it's clear that they made the best movie they could make with the situation that they had with Chadwick Boseman's passing. I mean, I just think that I could just see right now that originally, when they first conceived of this movie, they probably had 2 kings facing off. Both of these kings had nations that had been, colonized or been affected by colonization.
Well, neither one of them had really been, because Wakanda has never been conquered.
I don't mean colonized, but that whole aspect of colonization, that was a theme that kept coming back. So you could see that being a commonality between the kings, but then with him passing, they had to, like you said, they had to take some steps backwards, rewind a little bit to take it forward farther. And you're right, there's some things that they did. I don't think they needed to have the Contessa. They didn't need Julia Louis-Dreyfus in this movie at all.
No.
You probably didn't need Everett Ross. I think if you just had the basic story beats of Namor and Shuri taking the mantle, I think would have been enough. But it was only maybe 20 minutes too long for that, so it's still wasn't detrimental.
No.
Yeah, they really, I mean, even, and I say this only because I didn't really like the suit, but they didn't really need the Ironheart spin of the story.
That was the other extraneous that I don't think they needed that either.
Yeah, it could have easily been cut and just been somebody in part of the government that made that thing, and they punish the person and move on.
It could have still been Riri Williams. They introduced the character because she's going to show up in what series? She's showing up in
her own show, right?
Yeah, she got her own show, so they could have just introduced her really, really briefly. Saw the suit of armor sitting in the background.
Yeah, maybe just more of a nugget than an actual
point.
Storyline.
Need to be in Wakanda.
Yeah, it was over. It's. I heard somebody say in a podcast they called it. It was like there was like a hat on top of a hat on top of a hat. They just you were like adorning all of these things with more adornment, and you didn't need to. But again, these are all minor quibbles with an overall really good movie.
Because by the end of the movie, you had how many people in suits at that point? You've got the 2 Dora Milaje that are Midnight Angels now. You've got the new Black Panther. You've got Ironheart, and it feels like there's somebody else maybe I'm missing. And it's just like, wow, this is just a bunch of good guys in suits now, and it feels like
I thought this was Black Panther, not Iron Man.
Right.
Or Iron Women maybe should.
Yeah, and I wish they would have kept closer to the Ironheart suit, because that big red blob of a suit that they made was just not my favorite.
Well, of course, her very first suit is very bulky and reminiscent of the suit of armor from Tales of Suspense 39, the first, or even the first Iron Man movie. You know, so.
Another scene you didn't probably need. I guess it didn't hurt too much, but Warmonger, Michael B. Jordan.
Killmonger.
Yeah, Killmonger. Sorry. It just felt like he was just a plot device to.
Okay. I can see what you're saying there, but I also, in a way, it kind of was important, I think, to the movie, because Shuri goes to the ancestral plane, and every single Black Panther who takes the heart-shaped herb goes to the ancestral plane and meets one of their ancestors. And she was expecting to see T'Challa, and because her heart was more about vengeance, that is why. And I think that was there to explain what was going on with Shuri if it wasn't clear
Mm-hmm.
somebody who was watching the movie what her actual motivation was, and how she was being more like him than being like T'Challa, which I think was key in changing her mindset as the movie moved forward. So
yeah, it was definitely that part for me helped her change on the island where her and Namor are fighting towards the end of the movie. Is like, okay, is she gonna make the Killmonger decision, or is she gonna make the T'Challa decision?
Now I will talk about the couple of things that really bothered me. The first is they kind of turned Namor into the Super Friends Aquaman, where if he's out of water too long, he gets weaker and weaker and weaker and can't, fight anything. So, it's just like that. It's kind of like even like going back to the New 52, like that first episode or issue of Aquaman, where he's talking about people joking about him being away from water and, what good are your powers in New York City and all that type of stuff. So I wish they could have come up with a more a different way to have defeated Namor than we dried him out. And
that's weird because I actually thought that was one of my best scenes when he's trapped inside the ship and he can't get to water. I thought that was well played, but I mean, as a character, I thought Namor was cool looking. I mean, and
I loved his look. I just wish that they could have given him either make him not quite as strong and powerful.
Yeah, maybe they needed to do it at the front end because they had to come up with this other weird weakness because he was a god, like they were talking about. He's beyond being a man. He's a super powered man. He is a god, a Kukulkan is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of bothered me a little bit. Again, it was Super Friends, as opposed to
it's just the Aquaman angle.
Yeah. And then Queen Ramonda or Angela Bassett's death was completely ridiculous. She literally swims up 50 feet, taking Riri Williams with her, saves Riri, pulls Riri out of the water, right, and is even out of the water herself, but she's dead because I guess she drowned. Have something else happen. That was just.
Yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that.
A terrible end for that character. It should have been. I guess you could say it was a sacrifice, but you didn't really see the sacrifice. Yeah. You didn't see the end of it. She just, I don't know, hyperthermia, whatever it was. She drowned. I don't know. It just didn't seem like the end that character deserved to me.
Yeah, so, the drowning thing. You're right. It's not always played well. I think even in Black Adam, one of us had that comment that there's no way he could have swam. It might have been you, Scott. There's no way he could have swam in those frigid. He was a human at the time. We're talking about Black Adam.
No, I think it was Shad that had that.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
He could go swim through those frigid Arctic waters and survive it, whatever. But it was similar in this that, if you're going to drown, you would have drowned underwater. You don't drown above water.
Above water, yeah, because she was fully out of the water, even turned upside down. It just bothered me. They should have done a little bit better there with that. Letitia Wright and Angela Bassett, other than her death scene, which wasn't any of her acting, right, were awesome. They carried this movie. They were outstanding. Both should get at least nominations, right, for best actress and or best supporting actress. Although I don't know who would be best actress and who would be best supporting. Maybe
I'd say Letitia's probably would have been a main, and then
yeah.
But yeah,
I think her acting was fantastic too.
Absolutely. She was so good in the first one, so I didn't expect any less out of her. But gosh, she really did it.
And as much as I loved, what was the Dora Milaje, the general? What's her name? Okoye.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Scott, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this yet, but it was like the one forced joke that I just cringed at, and that's the makeup joke. They were standing in the parking lot, wait at the college campus, waiting for Riri, and she's talking about what my makeup, and they both got these shades on, and I don't know, it just kind of flopped.
Okay, it still is better than any attempts of humor that they had inside of Thor: Love and Thunder. So
yeah.
and it wasn't nonstop through the entire movie. So,
And I feel that this is a sign of a good movie when all we can really talk about is these little nitpicks, because
oh yeah,
it's
Absolutely.
when to me a sign of a good movie is that you just don't even, sometimes it's hard to articulate what
Mhm.
made it good for you. You just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And if you try to articulate it, you start deconstructing it, then it becomes less of an experience and more of an exercise.
Okay, so this is one question that I left the theater with in my head is when the Black Panther shows up again, who's the Black Panther? Because
His son.
Shuri left it behind, right? They were going to go through the ceremony where somebody can challenge to become the Black Panther. So if Shuri was the Black Panther, which I think was pretty clear in the movie,
Right.
she wasn't there for the challenge. M'Baku shows up to challenge for the Black Panther. So is M'Baku going to be the Black Panther? Is Shuri going to be the Black Panther? Are we going to have two Black Panthers? Moving forward, it wasn't clear to me. Or are they going to time jump it so that T'Challa, the new
That's
T'Challa,
it.
is the Black Panther?
They're going to time jump it. I really believe they're going to go to the, not just the son of T'Challa. I think you're going to have a whole new Young Avengers that are going to be the spawn of the Avengers. You got Love from Love and Thunder. You got from the Hulkling. He's not really the Hulkling. He's kind of whatever they called him on there.
Well, he's a Kree Skrull
Yeah.
hybrid in the comics.
Yeah, right. But I just feel like they're kind of laying the groundwork for maybe something with the legacy, and I'm okay with that. I mean, that's something at least different than the DC universe, is that maybe the Marvel Entertainment Universe is going to, or MCU is going to try to pass the baton to the next generations, whether it be their actual children or just inheritors of the mantles. We'll see. I find that it to be interesting. It's kind of a challenge, but I kind of got to give them credit for thinking ahead that far. And maybe they do. Maybe it's 12 years. Maybe we'll really be. maybe we go through because you still got the actual. You got the proteges out there, like
The Hawkeye.
Hawkeyes and you got the Riri Williams, so they're like already of age.
Right.
So maybe this is the third generation. We're already, we're starting to see the hints.
They're trying to plant the seeds already. That's true.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of thought that, and I don't know the rules, but can M'Baku be the king of Wakanda without being the Black Panther? And
traditionally, I took it to be that the Black Panther was the king. If you had the mantle of the Black Panther, you were the king.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So because it was T'Chaka before T'Challa.
Yeah.
And yeah. Now because there was no heart-shaped herb for there to be there was no more Black Panther after T'Challa. That's why we had Queen Ramonda.
Right.
But now that the heart-shaped herb was restored, they were going to go back to I assume they're going to go back to the old ways. But
I gotcha. Because I was thinking, well, M'Baku would of course be the king of Wakanda, and then Shuri would of course be the Black Panther. Was how I left it in my brain as the movie ended. That was the and you're right. We may not see these characters for another decade in their own standalone movie. But Ironheart, we might see Shuri as Black Panther in that, and we might see them kind of pick up as little pieces as things come together, and then all of a sudden we don't realize 10 years has passed, and all of a sudden we've got a of age T'Challa that can now take the Black Panther mantle.
Yeah, I expect to see another Black Panther movie in about 3 years. So I think
they'll age him up.
I don't know that, or maybe they will have, that is the one where they're teaching the new T'Challa how to be a king, and how they're going to at some point in the future take on this mantle. So it will be, that type of a storyline.
I think you're right. I think there will be something sooner rather than later, another Black Panther film, because this is a culturally important movie franchise.
That's true. Absolutely.
And more than any other that I can think of offhand. So I see this having a lot of momentum.
And I want this. I want the Black Panther continue just because of the fact I want some comic book heroes that they're going to put on the big screen that they're not putting up there just to make fun of.
Right.
And this is a character that they will not be able to poke fun at like they have with Thor and some of the others.
What's Prince T'Challa, and are you clocking him at what, 8 years old?
I thought it was 7. I think
it was 7?
Okay.
Yeah.
7.
They said even okay.
Yeah, is how the age that I put him at, because we had the, it was pre-blip.
Yeah.
And so
5 years plus
a couple of years prior. So I think he's around 7, but I'd have to double check.
What do you guys think about that last scene, though? I mean, I'm not talking about the mid-credit scene, but the last scene itself as being. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so different than what we're used to, and it just was more of just a touchy moment with her. She burnt the funeral garments, and it was her. Just I don't know. It just seemed like a really important moment, and it was a better ending than what I've seen a lot of these movies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You could have had that. You could have gone without even having the mid-credit scene, except you really do need, if they're wanting to introduce the next T'Challa, you needed it. But that ending was really good.
Well, I think it just put some nice closure on Chadwick Boseman, because they had the whole funeral thing at the beginning, and then Shuri didn't come to terms with it until the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So that kind of really just kind of wrapped things up, and I really think it was as much for not only for T'Challa but for Ramona, her mother, as well, all at kind of once. So
well, and I thought it's a very unique movie in that it's a movie about mourning and bookend by big mourning scenes, but not just for a character, but for the actor themselves. It's like, I don't know if there's been many, if any, movies that have been honoring not just a character they've ended, but the actor as well. And I thought that was really neat the way they did that.
And I also did appreciate no CGI Chadwick Boseman to try to pull some type of closure on this. I appreciated that. So
agreed.
I don't think I really have any other notes on this one other than that. So
are we going to see Namor anywhere else soon?
I hope so.
I do too, man.
Yeah.
This is a universe that's not been really. There's a lot to explore yet. He's an anti-hero, if there ever was one. Maybe the original when it comes to comics.
Yep.
So
have you ever read his first appearance?
No, I actually do have it though.
Mm-hmm.
It's
very crazy because what is this, 1940, right? So or maybe 41. 39. Okay, I didn't want to go 39. I know that's a Superman year, but
that's the Batman year. 38 Superman.
Oh, okay, all right. So I mean, Namor is literally like finding German subs and learning about the surface people. And when he opens up their sub and pulls them out into the water, he doesn't understand why they're dying.
Yeah.
He's pulling them out of their sub, and it's like, oh, they must be, yeah.
Yeah. What is? Oh gosh, because I bought like a hardcover edition of Marvel Comics.
Just Marvel Comics #1. Yeah.
That's what I have. Yeah. I just need to get that out and read it then. Yeah. I remember.
We definitely need to see, but I don't know where he fits in with this upcoming phase, because everything else is kind of Kang, so I don't know where they're gonna plug him into that. So I'm not for sure. So
I hope Kang is more menacing than what he was in Loki.
He will be. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Have you not seen the Quantum Mania trailer yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's not enough there to convince me. Yeah.
But he's definitely more menacing than he was at the end of Loki. So
yeah,
because he's not technically Kang in Loki, right?
True.
It's a different version. It's a variant.
I take him as a variant of Kang.
Yeah.
So he's Kang that was on a different path.
He's not bad guy. He's not super bad. He's not super bad guy Kang.
Yeah. He's not super bad guy Kang. He's kind of insane Kang, or not there Kang. So yeah. All right. Grades.
I'll go first. 8.5.
Okay.
Okay, that justifies it. Then I was just teeter-tottering between 8.5 and 9, and so I'll go 8.5.
Okay, I actually am 8.5 as well.
Hey,
Because my number one Marvel movie is Winter Soldier. I usually say that's a 9.2. I have the first Black Panther at a 9.0, and I've got this at an 8.5. So it just, because of the step backward, that's why, if we didn't have to take that step backwards, and take time telling that, then this would have been an even stronger movie.
yeah.
And it could have even rivaled Winter Soldier, but because of that step backwards to move forward, it just kind of slowed things down a little bit.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite as good. So, but still awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't taken the time to watch it a second time yet, but I need to do that soon. So.
I don't know when, but it should be on Disney Plus within the next month or so, I would imagine.
Shouldn't be too terribly long, but all right, we want a CLZ shake.
Shake it.
Shake it. Who wants to go first? Anybody ready? Shad, you're ready. You go.
I can go. I hit the volume.
Oh,
there we go. What's it say?
Full bleed.
Full bleed. The Comics and Culture Quarterly hardcover. This is from IDW. They did. I feel like they did some sort of like Kickstarter or something for this, and this is the first volume that came out. They did 4 volumes. This came out in 2018. They did print only. There was no digital version. 200-page hardcover, kind of magazine. And it had, just a bunch of one-shots. It had some articles, some spotlights on artists. It was a really cool thing. But like I said, they only did 4 of them. Their quarterly only got out of 1 year. Before I think they didn't get enough buy-in for it because it was kind of a pricey, as you can imagine, a hardcover 200-page book was didn't catch on super well. But one of these days I'll get the rest of them. I just bought the first one when it first came out, and that was it.
All right, Mike, you want to go? You want me to go?
You go ahead.
Okay, let's see if I can get that where it can be.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Well, this was an easy book to talk about, right? So we've got Watchmen. This is issue number 8, but of course I think everybody knows the story behind Watchmen. So yeah, I have the whole Watchmen series. This is the specific issue where Night Owl and Laurie step up their timetable, breaking Rorschach out of prison during a riot before they can regroup and head back into the field. Both Dr. Manhattan and the police arrive to deal with the vigilantes. So, Alan Moore, who of course has disassociated himself from this story, and Dave Gibbons, just an awesome book. Anybody who's into comics needs to read this series. If you haven't, right, it's evergreen. You can always find it in print because DC doesn't want the rights to revert back to Alan Moore. So they will so they will always have this in print, and just outstanding. So hey, one that I could actually talk about. It wasn't Silver Surfer or Micronauts or Wrong or Star Wars.
Okay.
Can't read it. Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey. All right.
Birds of Prey Volume 1. Issue 79. So this is later on in that run. The writer is Gail Simone, who just did a magnificent job. And the art was by Ed Benes, who was kind of known for his kind of good girlish type drawing. But still a really good series. And by this time Birds of Prey expanded beyond Black Canary and Oracle, and included Huntress and Thorn from Rose and Thorn. And this was in 2005, and I've got, I think, the entire run. Why, I don't know. I could probably get it on digital if I wanted to. So, but this is it's a really good, just a good book, a good series to sit down and read and have fun reading it.
All right. So, Shad, do you know what's coming up next? Previews. Okay. All right. And if I can get my act together and get these episodes out in the correct order, then we'll do the previews. Will actually be 150. Okay. Yes. All right. Yep. Okay. So
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So Shad, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, and of course I think you got some band change news.
We do have a
as
little
well.
bit of news. Yeah, I was gonna let everyone know. Yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook at Shad Schubert. That's ShaadSchubert, and check out my band formerly known as the Can't Get Rights. Different name, but same fun time. We are now just known as Shad and Thomas, which is the name of both of our names. It seemed a little simpler that way, and so yeah, it's worked out. We already have a show booked because of the announcement of the band change. We've got a show on. I don't know when this will come out, but January 6th and January 7th. So check out our page for locations, times, and all that good stuff.
All right. Mike.
Cool. Email wise, it's m.atchison. That's m.atchison90 at gmail.com, and then I still get on Twitter once in a while. I don't put out a whole lot, but I am there if anybody wants to reach out at Mike Atchison 5.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, burgcomics.com, with links to my social media pages, eBay store, and other contact information. And we'll be back soon with previews.
I was going to do a convoluted intro where I was going to introduce myself as Scott Jason Blood Ree, who occasionally turns into the demon when let Mike say his name. Not to be part of a love triangle, including. But I opted not to do it. I like that I'm Zana doing this. Yeah, I will. Would you rather be the demon Entergan or the cuckold Jason Blood? Which, by the way, I had that in my notes or something. Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome. What's bad is I was flipping back through it today, and it's like they actually use that in the story too. Like, yeah. Yes, I do remember that now. I remember because I was shocked to read that in the book. I was like, oh, well, it's a Shakespearean word, you know. It's, yeah.